I'd felt like something of a pessimist after Creature Commandos ended its first season back in January. I was, truth be told, scared about the DCU's take on Superman. Could I really call myself a fan of DC if I hated the DCU? What would that mean for my channel if I just looked at everything, thinking myself as some kind of guide while actively avoiding the big cinematic releases? Or worse, just complained about them while saying it isn't how things should be. I was spiraling about this thing for months and I didn't even realize it. Now, it's here. I bought my ticket and I cried. The good kind. The type that's quiet and secret and important. Superman is here, and I missed him. Before we begin, remember to leave a like on the video if you enjoy it, and if you like what I'm doing here, go ahead and subscribe. To the newbies, welcome, and to the oldies, welcome back. Let's talk about James Gunn's Superman. This thing had been in production since the middle of 2022, after everything with the DCEU had officially begun to fall apart. I've spoken about that to some extent previously, so I won't dig that up a second time, but the gist of it is that it became necessary for them to start fresh. A new DC universe, a new Superman, and a new style. It was a big risk, and I don't think I can understate how much was being gambled. James Gunn and Peter Safran were set in an impossible situation where audiences had already grown sick of DC in theaters, and they needed to make something successful enough to prove audiences wrong and make enough money to show the higher-ups that there is enough interest in what they make to expand it into a cinematic universe. A tall order, and one that had a lot of longtime DC fans, myself included, concerned. It was an odd point in time, to be frank. Chatter online ranged from the continued dislike for James Gunn just for existing to people saying if the movie flopped, it'd be the end of Warner Brothers entirely. On the other side, folks were saying it had the chance to be one of the best DC films in years. I was hoping for the latter, but heard a lot of the former, which is to say expectations for this thing were mixed. Certainly for myself. I generally tried to avoid seeking out spoilers, but a few things crossed my path occasionally that gave me more hope than not. Mr. Terrific was a character I'd always personally been quite fond of in the comics, and I was a little more on board after seeing his inclusion and his comic-accurate suit. Gunn also shared some production photos, and they'd usually be referencing some weird deep cut like Big Belly Burger, which made me think, maybe he is actually a fan. Then the trailer hit, and I was, again, cautiously optimistic. Metropolis had a design that gave the impression of the 1970s while still clearly taking place in the modern day, and it looked good. All that was left by that point, aside from more rampant speculation online, was to watch the movie.
Eyes up here!
Superman 2025 takes us from the awe-inspiring crystalline fortress of Solitude to the war-torn borderlands of Boravia to the complex and generally upbeat, organic city of Metropolis. We're given not just a sense of place, but a sense that we're stepping into a larger world where, while we may focus on Superman, he certainly isn't the only hero dealing with something dramatic this week. There's also an abundance of groups and organizations from the comics, like GBS and the Smallville Giants. An impression is given that this world has more history to it than what we see directly on screen. When a kaiju stomps around downtown, the citizens try and go about their day for as long as they can until they can't ignore the thing. Otherwise, it's just a semi-regular disruption to their day. Similarly, Boravia is said to have been waging war for years, with its own tumultuous history. We aren't being given a world where Kal-El is the first person to put on a onesie and start kicking butt. We're being given one where others have been doing it for centuries before now. I think my favorite indicator of this is the mural in the Hall of Justice. I didn't catch all of them at first, but from my theater seat I spotted Giovanni Zatara and Wildcat straight away. When it comes to the characters, the most well-rounded is undoubtedly Clark himself. Jimmy, Lex, Lois, and Mr. Terrific are close behind. Clark, played by David Cornsweet, is portrayed at the starting mark as a hero whose heart is in the right place, but his ideals and ambitions have been entirely predicated on the pedestal placed under him by his Kryptonian parents. When that pedestal is revealed to not be everything that he'd always seen it to be, he has to navigate the meaning of his own principles. He has a martyrdom complex, not fully seeing himself as someone worthy of being a person despite all he does. While up in the rafters, Lex is adamant that Superman isn't a person no matter what he does. It's the characterization of a person who had always held themselves up to these particular beliefs and morals, but now the idol of those beliefs has fallen from grace, and he's left to determine if that spoils the morals themselves, or if he just needs to learn how to hold it without them. Over the course of the film, Superman comes face to face with all sorts of characters who challenge and support him. Someone who does both is Lois Lane, played by Rachel Brosnahan. She's someone who sees the idealist in Clark. While she herself is very pragmatic, she does seem to want to foster that brilliant inner strength within him, albeit while challenging him in the arenas she's familiar with. Against him is Lex Luthor, portrayed by Nicholas Hoult. Definitely inspired by the Luthor from Grant Morrison and Frank Quitely's All-Star Superman, who despises Superman primarily on the perception that Kal-El didn't earn his various powers and gifts when he's had to work for everything in his life. That's the surface of his disdain, at least, but it ultimately comes down to simple, plain Jane pettiness. The main narrative revolves around challenging your own beliefs in the face of great strain, whether they deserve to be discarded or galvanized. It's filtered through this peculiar lens: punk rock, counterculture. In a world of cynics and pragmatists and self-defeat, it's counterculture to be an optimist, an idealist, and an empathizer. It's punk as hell, but it's also Superman. It's a movie that seems to care deeply about that lesson and about standing out from the usual superheroic riffraff we've been drowning in since 2009.
Nobody has to break anything.
Clearly, you've never made an omelet.
You beat me by 1 second.
This isn't a film that jams in a quip every 40 seconds like a court mandate. It's a film that takes the action and stakes seriously without taking everything seriously. There's a humor that, while unignorably present and undeniably James Gunn, never entirely breaks the tension of a scene where tension is meant to linger. It was a balance, and really, I think they got it damn near close to perfect. Now, if I were to offer some critiques, I'd be happy to say that I have very few. The pacing is pretty good. Superman himself is perfect, and I can state plain and clear that I loved it, including the squirrel. But the characterizations of Jor-El and Lara Larvan did leave a bad taste in my mouth. In franchises that have a Superman pastiche, they often have their equivalent to Kryptonians be the bad guys as a twist on the formula. Invincible and Dragon Ball Z being the biggest examples I can think of. But if the people of Krypton are also evil, or at least really bigoted, what's really the difference anymore? It also leaves plenty of implications for Supergirl. Did she know? Is she the same way? Will she just be Vegeta with a better hairline and a drinking problem? Secondly, this take on the Engineer didn't feel particularly strong either. I don't have as deep of a connection to the Authority as the rest of DC's lineup, but I've seen plenty of people say the same. She originally changed her body herself, but in this, it's Lex who turned Angela Spica into the Engineer, reducing her agency and character. I saw someone say this online, and I'm sorry I didn't save it, so I can't give credit where I should. They said that it seems that whenever James Gunn does a DC project, he picks one obscure character and takes them out behind the shed. This was a hat trick. That being said, it's not like they made Superman a tyrannical dictator or had Michael Cera play Lex Luthor, so while I can't say I liked those specific interpretations, it didn't detract from the enjoyment or the morals of the movie. It's still an incredibly strong and genuinely heartfelt film, and you can feel it from minute one. Perry's got a big stogie, the Justice Gang has a theme that gives Justice League Unlimited, and those portal chambers feel like they're one reverse engineering session away from becoming the transporter bays from Young Justice. And God, man, when the Superman theme started blasting during that scrap with the kaiju, that's when the waterworks started. It was Superman, live and in action on the silver screen for what really felt like the first true time in my life. It's a movie where every detail matters. When the bad guys step out of the chopper, Eve goes first, either excited or sick of the militaristic environment inside. The engineer is second, Luthor's bodyguard and scout. Lex goes next, confident in his own safety and disinterested in the safety of Eve. And then comes Ultraman, taking up the rear both because it'll cover Lex, but also because he's dim enough to need guidance. And that's like an 8-second shot. And there are tons of bits like this, and it speaks to a serious dedication to what's being made. At the end of the day, it's a beautiful film and one I'm glad to have seen make it to our screens. It was fun, vibrant, engaging, and it's given me a serious hope that the DCU is in good hands, and that more projects like it are on the horizon. Is what I would say. Perry never said Great Caesar's Ghost. 0 out of 10. I'd like to give a special thanks to our channel members, like Notsum Lehman. If you'd like to become a member and support the channel, that would make you my superhero. If you really enjoyed today's video, hopefully enough to have left a like and subscribed, you'll be happy to know that we also have an examination on how the heroes compare to their comic counterparts available here. Thanks for sticking with us. I'll see you in the next one.